Why drive an old police car? Hello everyone. So, I thought that I would give you guys a tour of my Crown Victoria, my 2006 Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor. It's an ex-Washington State Patrol car, and I bought it a few years ago, and I love it. It's my trusty steed. It's my silver. It's my what are the other names that they get? It's the Firebird to my Rockford, I guess. Does that make sense? I don't know. Yeah, it's got almost 200,000 miles on it. I bought it with, I think, 160,000 miles on it. I think. I can't remember. Maybe not. But I actually bought the car from an old, not an old, but it was a campus security car for a local college campus. And I bought it from them. They had just replenished their fleet. And I had actually, funny enough, bought Crown Victorias from this college campus before, and I always got a good deal on the cars, and I got a really good deal on this one. One of the things, one of the advantages to buying from this specific supplier, this college campus, is that when they go to get a car, they don't go to an auction. They go directly to the Washington State Patrol, and they get to sift through the Washington State Patrol's inventory and pick out the best car, or cars, as the case may be. So for that college campus, that very experienced purchaser, vehicle purchaser for them, he got the best car possible, and so in turn I got the best car possible. It has its quirks. It's not perfect. It's kind of like me. It's quirky, but you know, it was the best of its best of the best for the time. So it's definitely, it was a good buy for what I paid for it. And I paid way below what the going value was, even of the time. So yeah. Okay, so why an old police car? Well, when I was a kid, I grew up watching the movie The Blues Brothers, and it was like my favorite movie. And then the second one came out, and they used a Crown Victoria in that, and I thought, because before that I was primarily just interested in cars from the 70s. The problem was, cars from the 70s were old, the quality wasn't particularly good, and so by the time I got them, they generally didn't run. So at a certain point I said, okay, well, I'm just going to have to switch to more modern cars, and I found the Crown Victoria, and I fell in love with it. I love the interior layout. I love the layout of the body. I love the weight ratio of the body. I'm very familiar with it. I've owned over a dozen of these cars in the past 21 years. And the interior, how it fits you, it's like a cockpit. Now, I owned a 1993 Chevy Caprice, which was an ex-police car. And when sitting inside of it, I felt like I was sitting in the center of a battleship. That car was wider in the center than it was at the front or back. And so right where your doors were was where all of your space was. I was floating inside of that thing, and I hated it. And after I'd owned it for a little while, I was like, okay, this is really annoying. I need to go back to a Crown Victoria, because the Crown Victorias, they fit me. For me, this is like a cockpit. And these cars handle like they're on rails anyway. So, I just love the interior layout. Absolutely love it. That's one of the many things. I love the way the car looks. It's not modern by any stretch of the imagination. It was modern in 1998 when they switched the body style over. But you know, in 2021, it's not modern anymore. But for me, it's a classic design, and it's still attractive, and it evokes the feeling of the late 80s, early 90s Crown Victorias. Just a more modernized version of those. Seems like now all the noisy assholes are coming out. I don't know. There's a guy doing like 30 miles an hour through the parking lot. And he's honking all along the way. Anyway. I love the controls. They're super simplistic. There's not a lot of bullshit and fucking around. So, yeah, it's just everything. It's how the car handles. It's even how it sounds. How the car sounds when you accelerate. Even the smell of the interior. Just the natural smell of an old police car's interior. Specifically the Crown Victoria. I love that smell. So, yeah, it's the whole experience, you know. So, and then there's the reliability. Parts are fairly cheap, well, with the exception of one that I found out just recently. I'll tell you about that in a second. But parts are generally cheap and plentiful. Although that's changing, apparently. The cars are rugged. They're just tough. So, the quirks. What are the quirks? Well, as is the case with most older cars, they have certain little funny quirks that they have. Like when I put this car into gear, it takes a second for it to engage in that gear. Not when I'm driving the car, just when I'm, you know, manually putting it into whatever gear I want, reverse, drive, whatever. Old car quirk. The cruise control doesn't work particularly reliably. Once you actually turn it on, it works just fine, but getting it to turn on, that's where it's quirky. The horn doesn't work. One night, I was getting out of the car, I accidentally put something up against the horn. The horn, from the time I bought the car, the horn had never worked. So, I accidentally laced something very quickly, just for a couple of seconds, on the steering wheel where the horn is, and the horn goes off, and I'm like, holy shit. And then I take the stuff off, and the horn continues to be wailing and screaming. And so I'm sitting there in my driveway with my horn screaming, and I couldn't get it to stop, so I had to disconnect the battery, and then I took the car in. They diagnosed what the problem was, and it was going to cost like almost $600 to fix, and I was kind of like, okay, well, you know what, yeah, whatever. So the horn is disconnected. Horn doesn't work. the blower motor for the fan only works on high. I did fix that. It was that way when I bought it, and then I fixed it myself, which is a real pain in the ass. And then eventually, one day, I just smell this horrible smell of burning stuff, and then my fan motor goes back to only working on high. So it's been that way ever since. I have a warning light that kind of comes on occasionally for the ABS system. Had a friend run the codes for me, and it turns out that it's a little thing, a module thing, somewhere on the car. Talked with my mechanic's office, or my mechanic place, and they said that the part costs over $1,200, which is about what I paid for the car in the first place, and which is how much money I put into the car last year. So just for that one part, that's not including how much it costs to actually fix the car, you know, install the part and diagnose it and all that stuff. So yeah, so the brakes still work, they're fine, so it's not a problem, and it's only an intermittent warning light, so whatever. Quirky. That's what old Crown Vics are. They're quirky. And I love scenes in film and television that feature Crown Vics, because the cars are always, you know, super tough, and they're you know, fairly fast and whatnot. So yeah, you're gonna see clips from movies and TV shows on my channel featuring Crown Vics. So that's why, because I love these cars. In terms of money, like, at least it used to be this way, these cars are increasing in value like all the time. But this is basically the $1,000 muscle car. Muscle, okay, I know it's not a fucking Corvette. Okay, it wasn't designed to be a Corvette. It's not a Challenger, you know. But for the money that you used to be able to pay for it, you could find them all day long for under $2,000 bucks. For that kind of money, it's a muscle car. It's the $1,000 muscle car. So, but at a certain point in the not too distant past, people, especially people on the internet, started to get hip to just how cool these cars are. And of course that, you know, the popularity also drives up the demand and therefore the price. But yeah, they're legendary. And cops use them, like, so many departments use them for so long for a reason. Like the Chargers, a certain year range that I'm aware of, I don't know, maybe they're all like this, but I know that for a certain year range, the air box, you know, the air intake for the engine was down by the lower part of the bumper, or somewhere down in there. So if you drive through a deep enough puddle, guess what? You're sucking water and debris up into your intake. So that's not how you design a police car. And that's part of the problem with just taking any sedan and slapping some lights on it, you know, doing certain little mods here and there. The Crown Victoria, the most recent years, they had a long history of being used as police cars. And what that history gets you, you know, like Ford, they learned all those lessons. You know, the cops, you know, if there was some problem with some year or some aspect of the Crown Victoria, the cops would let Ford know. They would say, hey, we don't like this, you know, we do like this, keep this up, ditch this, you know, and for the most part, Ford listened. But with the Chargers, they don't have that history. So, and GM doesn't seem interested in making any kind of a decent police car. I know that some departments use them extensively. New York, for instance, used them because they were V6 powered. They got better gas. I mean, you can't drive over 35 miles an hour in the city of New York. You know, there just isn't the space. Even cops can't really do it, to my understanding. So, yeah, the cops use these cars for so long for a reason, and if the reasons are anything other than gas mileage related, economy related, you know, it's pay attention to that. You know, sometimes it's just down to, well, they didn't have any other options. Like with the Crown Victoria in the 90s, they didn't have any other options. But the Crown Victoria in the 90s was getting better and better with every year, until 96 when they started using plastic intake manifolds, which had, you know, I mean, you're talking about high temperature, high stress environment that part exists in. They would inevitably crack. They never really got back to that. They offered on the secondary market an aluminum intake manifold replacement, but I don't think they did that for the police cars. It was just something they offered later on. So yeah, but great cars, great fucking cars. So those are some of the reasons why I own an old Crown Vic Police Interceptor. Now let's do a walk around and we'll check this thing out. Okay, so here's the outside, and as you can see, it once had push bars on it. When they prepare the car for auction, they literally just cut them off. Leave the holes and everything else because they're not going to spend money repairing it, you know, because they're getting rid of it. And you'll have to excuse the dirt. I haven't washed it since, well, since my trip to Ording. So, now the wheels, I'm not happy with the wheels because they're rusted. I don't know what part of Washington State this car served in, but yeah, the wheels are pretty rusty. If I had more money, I would definitely consider repainting them. And here we have the spotlight. Washington State Patrol cars, at least at this time, only had one spotlight. And you'll get a better look at it on the inside. Yeah, it's not in the greatest condition, but it does still work. So a rusted wheel. Oh, my trans equality now sticker, gotta have that. And some of you maybe were unfortunate enough to have ridden in the back of one of these things, so you probably know what it looks like. Some of you, however, may not know. Now, this seat is in really nice shape for an old police car that served as a security vehicle. That's why the seat's in really nice shape, because it was an old WSP car and an old security car, campus security for a college, local college here. So it, yeah, it hasn't seen a whole lot of asses in the seat, so that's cool. Now, there are a few things that are specific to an ex-Washington State Patrol car, and that, of course, is, well, I can't say of course, but one of the things is the white paint job, but the other are the mud flaps. They're hard to see because they have, well, they have mud on them, but they say Crown Victoria. And only the WSP cars out here had mud flaps on them. That was something you could buy, I think, from Ford. So one of the other things that is specific to ex-Washington State Patrol cars, at least the Crown Victorias, is this here. The edge of the edge of the door is actually bent outward, and that's specific to these cars because, well, this is where they used to put they used to run the wire here for the light bar. So if you have a Crown Victoria that does not have the edge bent out like this, then it probably didn't have a light bar. Another thing that is specific to the Washington State Patrol cars is this strip of retroreflective tape. This red tape here on the door. That's so when the cop opens the door, that people's headlights will reflect off of it and they will know that the door is open. Just a few years ago, Washington State enacted a law that says that if you're traveling in the far right lane on the freeway, if you see a police car or a tow truck, you have to try to get into the center lane or the far left lane on the freeway, and that's to protect people on the side of the road. Coming around the back here, you will notice this Police Interceptor. That's because in 1999, Ford, for the Police Interceptor series, they dropped the Crown Victoria. They dropped the Crown Victoria badging and they just had Police Interceptor badging. But of course the car still is a Crown Victoria, and when you go to get parts or anything else, you'll have to specify Crown Victoria, and for most parts you want to say Police Interceptor so that they know. If you've ever wondered what the inside of one of these things looks like, well, here it is. This is the dashboard and the instrument cluster specifically. Now, at a certain point, I'm not sure, it may have been 2005 or this year, 2006, but at a certain point they sacrificed a couple of the gauges for a tachometer. And honestly, I don't see much use in a tachometer, although I understand why some people would want it there. Honestly, I would rather have the other two gauges back, but that's just me. And you'll notice here in the center it says certified calibration. Now, all that means is that from the factory, the speedometer was calibrated more specifically than that in a standard non-police vehicle. It doesn't mean that this car is capable of anything. It doesn't mean anything special other than that. And the reason that that they calibrate it so precisely is so that when cops are pacing people, trying to assess their the speed at which they're going, they can have a reasonable degree of certainty that that the speed that the other person is going, the speed that they've paced them at, is accurate. So now we move on to the, what's this? This is the spotlight. And it spins around, and you do it by spinning this, and then you can do this, and let's see if the thing works. Yep, see, it works. I've been thinking about replacing the internals with an LED setup. I just haven't done it yet. I didn't even know that existed until just the other day, so. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that this car is equipped with cruise control. The cruise control in this is, well, it doesn't work very well just because of the car's age. And the buttons are pretty worn out, and they don't really respond to being pressed anymore. Yeah, and it has cruise control because it's a highway car. And when you're spending the majority of your time on a highway, you don't want to have to sit there with your foot on the gas constantly. I swear to fucking God, I have chosen the noisiest fucking place to do this. That was not my intention. Anyway, moving on. This is my little MP3 player. Pretty standard stuff here, just really simplistic controls, which I love. I love how simplistic this is. You know, the civilian Crown Victorias generally have more complex control units, but the buttons tend to fail more often. These are actually, they're fairly bulletproof. You're not really going to break them. In fact, they'll probably outlast the car. And, you know, they're just quick and easy. You know, not a lot of messing around. So this was added later, aftermarket, by either the police or the college that I got the car from. Not sure which. And over here you'll notice this. That is a key-driven, key-operated switch that turns the airbags on and off. One of the things that cops are always concerned about when they're, you know, when they're performing the pit maneuver, precision immobilization technique maneuver, is that they're worried that their airbags are going to go off in their faces. So for situations like that, you have that shutoff right there. I've never had an old police car which had that, so that's a first for me. This is a cheap little dash cam that I got. Not important. So here's the stereo, upgraded, of course. What's cool about this is that I can actually watch movies and TV shows and stuff on it with a thumb drive. I just plug it into here, and if it's the correct file type, which I can take any file, and through my free editing software I can convert it to the necessary file type, so I can watch any movie or TV show or whatever I want on here. Pretty much. I've had problems with it, but you know, it works most of the time. This model year actually also comes with this, which is a foot pedal adjuster, and you know, kind of your standard Crown Vic ex-cop car stuff here. So yeah, and you can see my crack. Not that crack, this one here, and it's kind of going off this way, so I'm very thankful about that it's not going down. I actually, the other day I spent well, probably longer than I should have, saying go over this way, go over this way, go over this way, and commanding it or asking it very nicely to go over that way, and it actually went over that way. So there it is, there's that. Oh, I almost forgot this. Yep, this is a ticket light. And some cops actually, one of the things about the Crown Victoria Police Interceptor is that it has what's called a dark car mode, which means when you open the doors, the internal lights don't come on. The car stays dark on the inside, so that anyone, you know, if somebody, you know, wants to shoot the cop or assault them or assail them or whatever, the cop is not lit, you know, by the internal lighting of the car. However, when writing tickets at night, the cops turn this on. Well, it lights them up. And so with some of these, at auction, I've actually seen that the cops would take red markers and draw on the inside of them and color them out to make them red, so that when they turn them on, they weren't as bright. They were, you know, they were bright enough with the red light. They were capable of writing the tickets, and yeah. So there's a little bit of trivia for you. So that's the interior of this thing. Nothing particularly remarkable. You can see back here that where the where the car seat mounts are, there's actually mounting brackets for lighting, for police lighting, so that's fun. So that's the tour of my 2006 Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you found it informative. You may be asking, how do you know all this stuff? What? Yeah, I've owned a lot of these cars, and I've talked with a lot of people. I've met a lot of people, and I've met people who knew people who knew people, and through all that, I've learned everything that I've learned. So why an old police car, or why old police cars? Well, The Crown Victorias are, they're getting harder and harder to find and becoming more and more rare, and as their rarity increases, as the numbers of them dwindle, their cost increases. So there may come a day where I'm not able to drive these cars. Sorry, there's an aircraft going overhead. A fucking aircraft. So, so there may come a day where I'm not able to own these cars anymore, and so I'm owning them now while I can, and just enjoying the hell out of them. Everything that you see, I mean, these seats, they're not comfortable, but they've got stab plates in the back. They're heavy duty. The car is fairly no frills, but for what it is, it's got fairly high horsepower, a 4-door sedan, which was generally bought and marketed to senior citizens and police departments and taxi companies. They're tough. As the saying goes, they're bulletproof. Now, that doesn't mean that they're literally bulletproof, but well, although part of it is mildly bullet resistant, and I'll tell you about that in a second, but bulletproof just means that they're extremely reliable, that you can rank on them and beat them up, and they won't fail like a lot of other cars will. They don't fail under that kind of stress. They're built to withstand that kind of stress, and I like owning something and driving something that is as tough as it could possibly be. Sure, there are service parts that wear out just like any other car. You know, they're I mean, it was made by a car company, so you know they make certain things to fail at certain intervals, and but this car doesn't have as much of that, you know, and overall it's really tough. So what you guys might see, you guys might look at this and say, boy, that's so stripped down, or that's so ugly, or there's not enough leather, or there's not enough lights, or there's not enough neon, or whatever. All of your complaints, to me, go in the pro column. So, you know, for me, I don't want any of that shit. I like how the steering wheel has wear on it and how it wears out. I like that there are stains on the seats. I like that there are holes in the dashboard. I like all that stuff. It's weird, I know, but again, you know, I mean, look at me. I'm unique in my tastes, so I'm going to own one of these for as long as I can, and fuck the SUVs. I do not. One, I couldn't afford a fucking SUV cop car. One of the cool things about the Crown Victoria was that when they were still largely and widely in service, they were cheap. They were cheap to buy on the secondary market through private parties or even auctions. So they were a good car for low-income people, and that reliability allowed the cars to last longer and allowed the low-income owners to have a car that lasted longer. So yeah, the SUVs and the cars that they have now, because they're, for a long time, the Crown Victoria was basically the only cop car. And so they made a fuckload of them. Because of that, because there were so many, they flooded the secondary market, and that drove the prices down. Now you have the SUVs, the Chargers, the Impalas, and they're produced in smaller numbers, relatively speaking, and so the prices are higher per unit, per vehicle. So it's looking like, for a while at least, owning a cop car is going to be a more expensive prospect, and therefore not within reach of very low-income people. So, unfortunate, but not entirely unsurprising. That and police cars, now people know about them, and because it's not such a niche thing anymore, the demand goes up, and when you have fewer of them, by comparison, price goes up. So there's a lot of factors involved, but I've had people just like sitting on the freeway off-ramp make me offers on this thing. I'm never going to sell it. If there's some catastrophic failure that I can't afford to fix, then I'll sell it. But as long as she keeps going, and as long as I can fix her, I'm going to keep her. So I've basically already paid for the car twice over. I paid a certain amount when I bought it, and then last year I had it fixed, and the cost of fixing it was the same as the cost of what I paid to buy it. So I'm willing, now that I'm invested that much in it, yeah, I'm going to fix it up when I need to. So, remember when I said the cars were bulletproof? Yeah, well, in a way it kind of actually is. In this model year, 2006, this was the first model year where they actually had an optional Kevlar lining for the inside of the driver's side and passenger doors. Not the rear doors, of course, because they don't give a shit about, we the people, but just in the doors. It's a very thin sheet of material, so it's not bulletproof, but it adds another layer of bullet resistance. That's why they call it bullet resistant. They quit calling them bulletproof vests because they weren't bulletproof, they were bullet resistant. Same thing with the glass. The glass isn't bulletproof, it's bullet resistant. So there's a little bit of trivia for you too. That's my video. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.